And welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Peter Winnick. I'm the founder and CEO of Thought Leadership Leverage, and you're joining us on our podcast today, which is Leveraging Thought Leadership. Today, my guest is Bennie Fowler. Bennie is an interesting gentleman. He is a C-suite exec with more than 40 years of leadership experience. We would eat up half the time of the show if I went through his bio, but he was a group VP of global quality and new model launch at Ford. He was VP of advanced and manufacturing engineering at Ford, COO at Jaguar and Land Rover. And he was, basically on the C team at Ford for a number of years after spending a stellar career there, and then decided instead of just relaxing and chilling out, let me dive into this world of thought leadership and share my knowledge and such with the rest of the world. So welcome to this phase of life, Bennie. How are you today?
Well, thank you, Peter, for having me, and I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Yes, no, so am I. So what was clearly during your career, you didn't have a ton of spare time, right? I would imagine demanding roles, $140 billion operations, you didn't have tons of PTO or spare time to sit around and ponder the universe and all that. What was the spark that said, at some point I'd like to spend more time talking about leadership and all that? Where did that come from?
Well, I guess it, really started early with me, being a captain of a baseball team or a basketball team. First, get into your, first real leadership positions, and you really, if you're in high school or in college, you go to center court and you're representing the team, in terms of taking the coin toss and things like that. So you really don't understand that until you get a chance to try to reflect on the challenges of actually being the leader of the team. Someone that's thought enough of the actions that you do every day, the performance that you have to say, hey, you're going to be the captain of the squad because you set an example for how others might want to conduct themselves. So, you really start to think about that at very early ages when you're me. And I was a captain of my team when I was in high school and college. And, as you start to move on through life, you get your first leadership role.
Sure.
As a production supervisor, as an intern, where you're now leading people that have more seniority than you are old.
So let's stay on that sort of this concept between there's a symbolism of, wow, it's cool. You get to go center court to do the coin toss. That's what it must mean to be the captain. That's like 0.0001% of what it actually means, right? What's all the other stuff that isn't as visible or public or symbolic that really matters, be it on the court or in the boardroom?
Well, I think anyone that goes that gets nominated as a captain, there are certainly work ethics and things that you have to display. It's the preparation of yourself first, because I think that's the major thing that you have to manage if you're going to be good at anything, or if you're going to lead. And you have to be able to be led, and then at some point you observe people that are leading, and then you become a leader yourself. And I think those are important elements. I think that every leader has to bring people together, and I think that's the biggest thing that I learned from the whole situation is if you're going to lead, it's really about organizing individuals around a common cause and really heading in the direction that you want to go. So this whole concept of leading and being led and working together as a team is probably the biggest thing that you learn in any board, in any boardroom, in any place you've been. Because the big thing is we know that there's teams that always have talent, but they can't win.
Right.
And I think that there's certain things about being the leader. Sometimes you have to sacrifice a bit yourself in order to get the desired outcome.
Sure.
So there's the whole notion of leading and thought leadership is something that I've been thinking about for a long time, and certainly making a transition. I have a bit more time to think about it than I did when I was going from place to place, really trying to make a difference in people's lives in business, whether I was coaching little kids, whether I was running a plant, running a business, running a larger business, and scaling to a global level. It all changes.
So when you chose to transition and say, listen, I'm going to retire from Ford, I've had a stellar career, I could do many things at this point. I can do nothing, right? I could travel, I could do nonprofit work, I could serve on board. There's the right mix there. What was it about sort of thought leadership and speaking and all those things that sort of drew you to it? Right. And that's sort of my first piece. And then what research, if anything, did you do to say, yeah, this might be the path, this might be the way I would do it?
Well, here's the thing. I'm still, I would call, in the transition mode
Hmm.
because, obviously, feeling like I feel today, the first 6 months of any retirement, you take a chance to relax,
Hmm.
kind of unwind a bit,
Right.
and really have a chance to reflect on the things that you want to do. So, if you have 40 years of experience, the one thing that I learned is I had to start to write down concepts and things that I wanted to talk about, things that I
Hmm.
want to speak about, things that I wanted to be, that I was knowledgeable about. And the other part is some of it was what people were asking me to speak about. So, for example,
Hmm.
I had 11 years as a global vice president of quality. And one of the big
Hmm.
challenges that the industries face is delivering quality and productivity at the same time. And many
Hmm.
think you can only have one and you can't have the other, but
Trade off. Right.
the challenge is to be able to deliver both. And and you can do it sometimes in small pockets, but in my case, it was trying to deliver quality and productivity on a large global scales with many cultures around
Hmm.
the world to try to bring it together as one to deliver a unified position on quality.
Yep.
So building up the experiences and the successes early in to be able to deliver quality in a department development delivered in a plant, delivered in multiple plants,
Sure.
delivered in a company, and then scaling it to the levels that we did at the Ford Motor Company when I was doing the quality role there. You actually build up the expertise to be able to have a quality.
Hmm.
So therefore, that provided a reservoir for speaking engagements. I mean, I did some
Hmm.
in Japan. I did
Sure.
engagements in Thailand and different places around the world. And I also did a lot. I do a lot of seminars where new vice presidents of quality,
Sure.
new quality managers, and just individuals who want to learn more about the rudiments of quality, not from a theoretical sense, but from a practical standpoint.
Sure.
Because you can read most of the stuff, but when you're going through
What's it
these
really look like?
trying to do is uh, can you help me with this situation I'm facing? And I find that that's where the biggest
Yep.
reservoir of knowledge can be utilized to help individuals.
So I want to go back to something that you touched on briefly, which is about writing it down. So in my experience, I've worked with lots of C-level executives that have chosen to transition into thought leadership as that next piece. Now, some, I'll sort of give you the continuum, some were planning it for years. They knew there was something about the way the perspective that they had, or their sort of personal operating system, or their leadership framework or team framework, whatever. They almost became, quote, famous for it, either inside their company, inside their industry, et cetera, and they knew at some point they wanted to go out there, write a book and do all those things. And many were writing throughout the years. Would you consider yourself a writer? Were you constantly jotting down thoughts and nuggets and sort of leadership tidbits and such, or did you only start doing that during the transition phase?
Well, I think that I would say that in order to deliver a quality operating system, one of the things that we had to do is write that down and start to write it down and document it early. And
Okay.
actually, inside of Ford, we created a quality college. And inside the quality college, obviously, the theory of what we were trying to, the strategic theory of what we were trying to practice and what we wanted to put in place were the elements that we wrote down, that we taught, that we implemented,
Mm-hmm.
that we constantly followed up. I would say to all of my people that I would go visit, it's an open book test. So the
Mm-hmm.
theory is written down, and every time I come in, I'm not going to try to surprise you with something new around what we want to implement. It's a standardized system that we want to
Pretty
implement,
clear. Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
want you to be proficient at it. So go from a novice to a user to an expert in being able to practice and deliver world-class quality products on a consistent basis. So
Got it.
therefore, I would say that you start to write these elements down and they become a part of the operating system or the operating methodology that you use. Now,
Got it.
as
Got
you
it.
transition out of a system like Ford, they have their own basis of their quality operating system, but everywhere you go, every organization has concepts that they're trying to deploy to deliver the products and services that we have. So I think
Sure.
the key point is learning the concepts and how they apply in the given settings that you're going to. So you're really not trying to make it a cookie cutter approach, but I do have basic concepts that I know that work no matter where you go, because it's a design. It's got to be built, and we have to ship it at a certain quality level. So those are the basic concepts that you use in delivering world class.
Got it.
But you can do the same thing with productivity. You to break this down so they don't have to be exclusive. They actually come together if you execute
and marry the two. If you're enjoying this episode of Leveraging Thought Leadership, please make sure to subscribe. If you'd like to help spread the word about our podcast, please leave us a review and share it with your friends. We're available on Apple Podcast and on all major listening apps, as well as at thoughtleadershipleverage.com/podcasts. So when you started to go down this path, and I get that it's fairly new for you, you took a deep breath, right? And you said, okay, let me come up with some sort of a plan, some sort of a strategy, right? What would this look like? What is the life that Bennie wants to live now, right? I mean, you spent a lot of time on the road. Maybe you don't want to replicate that. You've had thousands of people working for you. Maybe you don't want to replicate that. So give us an overview of sort of the canvas and what the strategy looks like for sort of this new phase in your career.
Well, I decided that I was going to be on the road. I was transition because I really wanted to, start my own business. I wanted to be a CEO, and I know that if you're going to be one, whether you have your own business or if you're going to provide thought leadership to do speeches or whatever, I mean, the first, I'll say 90 days out, I mean, I had 3 speeches booked before, I actually, people started to learn that I was transitioning. So I was able to book some of the speaking engagements, and they put me on the road to be able to do them. So I knew that if I was going to be in this discussion called thought leadership before the pandemic hit, one of the things that I thought that I would really want to do is to travel a bit, because that would keep me from sitting around the house and not doing things. And I also really wanted to run, a larger business as a COO or a CEO. So those are things that I still had in my mind that I wanted to do, but I wasn't going to rush out and just take anything. I was going to take my time, do the due diligence. If there was something that I felt like I could be a part of that was bigger than me and they needed my help, those are the kinds of situations that I'm still looking for today. So therefore, being a part of discussions with people like yourself who have been in this business for a long period of time, you actually look, learn, research, and then you try to modify your strategy as you go over time. So I don't really have a cookie cutter example that says do it this way, et cetera. I mean, now there's a different type of clientele building because there are a series of mid-level managers who really need help.
Yep.
And they know I'm available, so they're reaching out for the help. And so therefore, I'm still able to support, these individuals' growth and development, which is really what I love to do.
Sure. So more of a little bit of a coaching, advisory sort of support role.
Yeah. So I think that one of the things, Peter, I wanted to just add, the greatest success I've ever had is when you're able to develop a strategy and then actually personally involve yourself in the coaching of the individuals to help deliver the strategy. I mean, a lot of strategies fail because we just don't spend the time in what I'll call personnel development. And we promote people. They're very talented people. And then when you go from one level to the next level, the scale changes enormously.
Sure.
So things that you have to do as you get into these larger positions, they change. And
the easy stuff is the systems and processes, right? So when you get to TQM and systems and processes and Six Sigma, those are not easy disciplines, but that actually becomes the easy stuff relative to the people side of the house, right? Most of the
tools that you can use, but you have to use them and deploy them in a profound way in order to deliver the results. I mean, you can have black belts and green belts and really just have them. But when you start to try to apply them in the context of larger systemic moving pieces, that's where the rub comes. I think.
So what are the surprises, let's say, the 2 or 3 surprises other than COVID that you've been exposed to relative to transitioning to this, right? Because you've had lots of taste of success, both on the ball field, in the boardroom, and everything in between. And now you sort of come at this thing as a novice, right? And it's kind of rare in life that we get to sort of jump ship and say, "Whoa, I got to have a beginner's mind here." So what's been two or three things that have been surprising you, either positive, negative, whatever the case may be, as you start to take this journey?
Well, I'm viewing all of everything that I'll talk to you about as an opportunity, because I still think that no matter what we think about businesses in the United States, there's still a portion of the business that need operating systems,
Sure.
that need to understand the concepts. And if they put leaders in place that do not understand the notion of operating systems, and they're in what I'll call the short sprint mode, there's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that. So I'll call it a pump and dump. And
Right.
there's certain people, when they become CEOs, that's what their challenge is. They'll go in and they know that it's a short-term sprint for them, and that's what they do. Times when they leave, there's a lot of casualties behind them. I think that, surprisingly, there's probably 25% of the businesses that I face that are still in that mode.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of times what happens in this COVID situation, the first thing to go is to training and development.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we dropped that first. So there's, if you had people that were in corporate development programs, that would be considered as discretionary.
Sure.
And it's not a surprise, but it is what's happening. And so therefore, I know we certainly have to be prepared. And in my case, there are clients that I know that I've had to work with on a discounted rate because they wanted to stay with the programs, but couldn't afford to do it the way we would normally do it. And so therefore, for us as leaders starting business, you have to be able to adjust and adapt to the client's needs. And those are the things that I have been doing as I've gone through this challenge, just like everyone else has.
Yeah, and I think, training and development is one piece of it. I mean, we like in business certainty. We like absolutes because it's easy to plan and minimize risk and, do all that. And irregardless of what anybody says, these are times of just so many unknowns. There's some basic things we know, but nobody would have predicted, if you think about the Fortune 1000 goes through planning season and risk scenario and whatever. I don't think there's one report that had 5% of what we're experiencing today, no professional sports, on and on and on and on. So I think these times of uncertainty, leadership is critical. And I think that transparency and the honesty saying, being truthful, saying we don't know all the answers right now. What we do know is we can communicate you. What we do know is these are the things that we're doing. Anything that's been a surprise to you on the positive?
Well, just to take your point, Peter, I wanted to just comment on the point that you were making. And one of the things I wanted to just add is when we had gone through several challenges when I was in the C-suite at Ford. And one of the things that we tried to do every day was to prepare for what we would call catastrophic events.
Sure.
Not knowing what the event was going to be. It could be war, it could
Sure.
be what it is today, et cetera. But the operating methodology was just really kind of how we approach business every day. And I mean, I often say to people, in the good times, that's the time to prepare for challenges that you may face. You don't know what they're going to be. You don't know how we're going to do it. But
Sure.
the whole operating scenario in terms of being together, and our meetings were every Thursday, where we would spend time going through the business in a very rigorous fashion and working on things in special attention. And then everything else in our meeting cadence and our governance was a part of the operating system that allowed us to be together and to continually work on preparing for better days if the opportunities were there, or challenges like they are now. And the one very good thing about it is, and I would just say to most people, is you won't be able to predict everything, but one thing you can do is stay together as a team.
Yeah, no, great stuff. No, that's great advice, Bennie. Thank you.
As to what is happening. And I know we were going through one of what I'll call the last Great Depression, was around 2006-07. Where companies were going through bailouts in the industry, and we know what that was like. One of the things we committed to ourselves is that we would pull up our belt bootstraps, and every day at noon, no matter where you were in the world, there would be a discussion on what our priorities were and how we were going to try to make it. Yes, that uncertain time.
And that consistency. Great. Well, this has been phenomenal, Benny. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your effort, and I wish you well on your continued journey in these uncharted waters. But thanks so much for joining us today.
All right. Thank you, Peter. Talk to you soon.
Thanks.
To learn more about Thought Leadership Leverage, please visit our website at thoughtleadershipleverage.com. To reach me directly, feel free to email me at peter@thoughtleadershipleverage.com. And please subscribe to Leveraging Thought Leadership on iTunes or your favorite podcast app to get your weekly episode automatically.